There is a black leather briefcase that follows the President of the United States everywhere he goes, onto Air Force One, into foreign summits, even to his bedside at night. And for decades, Americans have been told that this object, known as the nuclear football, is the singular nerve center of the most destructive power in human history, the one physical artifact that stands between civilization and annihilation. The proof that a democratically elected leader, and only that leader, holds the trigger. But that briefcase is a prop. A beautifully engineered, psychologically reassuring, constitutionally comforting prop. And the men who built the actual system knew it, protected it, and when a sitting president of the United States tried to take back the power they had quietly stolen from him, they looked him in the eye and lied. And listen, if that sentence alone just made something in your gut drop, you need to subscribe to Frankly USA right now. Hit that bell, because what I am about to show you in the next 9 minutes is going to completely shatter the way you understand power in this country. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never look at that briefcase the same way again. To understand how this happened, you have to go back to the early 1950s, to a world where the Soviet Union had just detonated its first hydrogen bomb, where American military planners were staring at maps of Moscow and calculating with cold mathematical precision exactly how long it would take a Soviet missile to reach Washington, D.C. And the answer, roughly 15 minutes, produced a fear so specific, so visceral, that it fundamentally rewired the entire architecture of American power. The fear had a name inside the Pentagon: nuclear decapitation. The scenario where a Soviet first strike kills the president, destroys the chain of command, and leaves America's entire nuclear arsenal sitting in silos with no one legally authorized to fire back, meaning the United States could be annihilated without ever launching a single warhead in response. And it was this fear, legitimate, rational, genuinely terrifying by any measure, that led President Dwight D. Eisenhower, war hero, supreme commander, a man who had watched what weapons did to human bodies across Europe, to sign what became known as pre-delegation orders, a classified set of directives that quietly, legally, and with full presidential authority at that specific moment, granted senior military commanders the autonomous ability to authorize a nuclear launch, without waiting for a presidential order. Because in Eisenhower's calculus, a dead president was a liability the free world simply could not afford.
Now, here is where the story should have stayed. A calculated, arguably defensible wartime contingency from an administration that genuinely believed the Soviet Union was weeks away from a surprise strike at any given moment. But the story did not stay there, because the men who inherited that authority developed something that power always seems to produce in those who hold it long enough. They decided they didn't want to give it back. When John F. Kennedy took the oath of office in January 1961, he inherited a government he believed he understood: young, idealistic, constitutionally confident. And one of the first things his administration began to probe was the precise question of nuclear command authority. Because Kennedy, unlike Eisenhower, was deeply suspicious of the military establishment's appetite for autonomous action. His advisors began asking pointed questions. Who exactly can authorize a nuclear launch if the president is unreachable? Under what conditions? And who decides when those conditions have been met? And the answer they received from senior Pentagon officials was essentially, no one, Mr. President. That authority rests solely with you. There are no standing pre-delegation orders. The chain of command runs directly through the Oval Office. That was a lie, a documented, deliberate, institutional lie told to a sitting commander-in-chief by the very military establishment he was constitutionally empowered to command. And we know it was a lie, not because of conspiracy theorists or declassified whispers, but because historians examining NSC documents established that pre-delegation authority was not only still active in 1961, it was embedded so deeply into operational war plans that removing it would have required a systematic overhaul that the Joint Chiefs had absolutely no intention of undertaking. They were, in the bluntest possible terms, protecting their autonomous power by deceiving the man who was supposed to hold it. And to understand what that power actually meant, what these generals were so determined to protect, you need to understand what they were planning to do with it. Because this is the part of the story that no briefing room in Washington ever wanted reduced to a single number. And yet, the number exists. It is real. It was calculated by serious men in serious institutions, and it is this: the Pentagon's operational nuclear war plan in the early 1960s, informed by Rand Corporation analysis and the strategic doctrine of theorists like Herman Kahn, projected that a full nuclear exchange, what Kahn, with the kind of clinical detachment that makes your stomach physically turn, called a wargasm, would produce approximately 600 million deaths. 600 million human lives. And of those 600 million people, 100 million would not be Soviet citizens, not Chinese soldiers, not Warsaw Pact combatants. 100 million of the projected dead were citizens of American allied nations, countries that had signed treaties with Washington, that had hosted American military bases on their soil, that had built their entire post-war security on the assumption that American power existed to protect them. And the American military's own internal projections said, quietly, in classified annexes that almost no one ever read, "We will kill 100 million of them too." And we have already decided this is an acceptable variable, not a tragedy, a variable. Now, this is not the deep state that American political culture argues about endlessly, the shadowy bureaucratic resistance, the career officials who slow-walk policies they disagree with, the intelligence community leaking to journalists. What we are describing is something historians have called the dark state, and the distinction matters enormously. Because the deep state, as the term is commonly used, implies a power structure that operates against the sovereign, that works around the sovereign to pursue its own agenda. The dark state is different. The dark state is a power structure where secrecy goes all the way to the top, where the president is not the victim of the hidden system, but is, at least nominally, its sovereign. Except that in the case of pre-delegation authority, the sovereign had been deceived about what he actually owned, which means Kennedy was simultaneously the head of a system he didn't fully know existed, and a president being actively lied to by the very people who ran it.
And that distinction between a state that deceives the public and a state that deceives the president himself is perhaps the most disturbing constitutional reality that almost no American civics class has ever taught. Now, if this were purely a Cold War story, a relic of a bipolar world that ended when the Berlin Wall came down, it would be a sobering historical footnote and nothing more. But it is not purely a Cold War story, because running parallel to the pre-delegation architecture, and in many ways legally descended from it, is a body of classified directives known as Presidential Emergency Action Documents, PEDs, a collection of pre-signed, pre-drafted executive orders designed to give the president, or whoever is acting as president during a catastrophic emergency, extraordinary authority over American society. Authority that, based on the limited declassified descriptions that researchers have managed to surface, includes the power to suspend habeas corpus, to authorize the censorship of news reports, and to deploy federal resources in ways that would be constitutionally unthinkable under any normal condition. And as of the most recent confirmed reporting, approximately 56 of these documents remain classified, held in a secure vault, currently active, never reviewed by Congress, never subjected to judicial scrutiny, and drafted under a legal framework
sometimes referenced as Plan D-, that was specifically designed to ensure that some version of the United States government continues to function during and after a nuclear attack. 56 documents authorizing powers that no sitting president has ever publicly described to the American people. And here is the conclusion that the evidence forces you toward. Not a dramatic one, not a paranoid one, but an architectural one. That the American system of government has two layers that have always existed simultaneously.
The visible layer, the one with elections and press conferences and congressional hearings and the nuclear football being carried in a photograph, and the documented but obscure layer, the one with pre-delegation orders and PEADs and Plan D-, and classified directives that were signed decades ago and have never once been revisited by democratic process. The football is real. The president does have nuclear authority, but the football was never the whole story. It was always the story we were supposed to see. The theatrical confirmation that everything is under control, that one elected human being stands between us and the end of the world. The harder truth is that for a significant period of the most dangerous decades in human history, the generals had their own answer, and they protected it by lying. And the infrastructure they built to justify that lie is still, in modified form, sitting in a vault somewhere, waiting for the extraordinary situation it was designed for. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a documented, sourced, historical reality. And the most unsettling part is not that it happened. It's that we barely even talk about it. If this video made you see your government differently, if something shifted in the way you understand who actually holds power in this country, then share this with one person, just one, who still believes the president is the only hand on the trigger. Because the most effective thing a democracy can do is inform itself. Subscribe to Frankly USA, because this channel exists for one reason: to show you the America behind the America you think you know. And the next video goes even deeper.